Hello everybody, this is JD, and I'm going to be talking to you today about something that I've been spending a couple years now studying, and that is economies. What I'm going to talk to you about is a grave misconception that everybody has about economy. Everybody thinks socialism is the redistributing of wealth. Truth of the matter is, socialism is not the redistributing of wealth, but maintaining the status quo. By maintaining the status quo, everybody's equal, everybody's the same, etc., etc., etc. And now here's the shocker. All the economists and everybody talk about how capitalism is free enterprise, free enterprise, free enterprise. It is free enterprise, but its key is the redistributing of wealth. Whoa, wait a minute. No, that's capitalism. Without the redistributing of wealth, you will not have capitalism. You have to have the redistributing of wealth to have capitalism. Well, you're going to say, prove it. I'm going to say, look at history. When the kings and the noblemen kept their wealth towards themselves, that was the Dark Ages. There was no growth. But when people were able to redistribute their wealth through the manufacturing, remember, the kings and noblemen, they owned the blacksmith, they owned everything, and they maintained the status quo. When that was gone, then the kings and noblemen who redistributed their wealth got richer. Those who hoard their wealth failed and got poorer. And if you look at those who hoard their wealth, you'll find that today their castles are hotels, motels, or abandoned. Because their status quo failed. Now, those who entered capitalism and redistributed their wealth succeeded. Now, look at our economy. Where's it at? What's causing it to stagnate? Well, the rich are hoarding their money, right? They're not redistributing the wealth. What do I mean by that? Well, the man who works for a rich man, his paycheck is part of that rich man's wealth. The rich man redistributed it to the man who worked in his factory. And that man took that home. And he got a little richer. And the rich man got a little poorer. But the product they made sold. And the rich man got back more than he distributed. Thus he became richer. Well, wait a minute. I just described the capitalist system to you. Yes, redistributing the wealth is what the capitalist system is based on. If that wealth is not trickled down and redistributed via product manufacturing, jobs, new products, old products, capitalism comes to a grinding halt. Now, am I speaking the truth? Let's take two examples. A man, multi-millionaire, invests in a product. He decides, this is a great product, I want to make it. He builds factories. Well, he just spent money. He buys the raw material. He hires people. All his wealth is distributed. But it's a bad product, so it doesn't sell. He goes bankrupt and he ends up broke. See, he redistributed his wealth but got nothing in return. But he did create jobs, and people did work, and people did get, other people got his wealth. It was redistributed. Now let's go to another example. Another guy who does a little research and decides to make a product that shows great promise. An assembly line for an automobile. Vice building individual cars. Now he had to go and invest money into building that assembly line. And he had to hire people at that factory that he just built. More people. But not that he paid him the same that everybody else paid. He paid more because he wanted a better worker. So not only did he distribute the minimum, he distributed more of his wealth. They started producing the automobiles a lot faster. And his return was vastly improved, or greatly enhanced. See, Henry Ford redistributed his wealth, took a chance on an idea of an assembly line. And today all automobiles almost are built on assembly lines. Not every single one of them. I think a few are still handmade. But look at the difference between the factory at Rolls-Royce and Ford's factories. Notice what I said, the factory at Rolls-Royce and Ford factories. You see? And that is redistributing the wealth. And that's what capitalism is about. The total redistributing of wealth. It isn't given out. It is distributed. It is distributed through raw materials. It is distributed through building and maintaining. It is distributed through employees' payroll. As you see, and then the product is sold and the return is greater than the distribution of the wealth. That's capitalism. Now, why is our economy so slow? Because the rich are not redistributing the wealth. They are hoarding it, afraid they might lose it. Well, if Henry Ford was afraid he might lose his wealth, cars would probably still be built in a stand of a spot, one car at one time. It'd be so expensive, they'd be priced like the Rolls Royce. Actually, a lot of products made on the assembly line today would not exist because the assembly line would not exist. Henry Ford took a chance and redistributed his wealth. This country has the potential to be the greatest recycling or redistributing of wealth than any other country in the world. But unless that starts, capitalism will grind to a halt and fail. Because without redistributing of the wealth, capitalism will fail. The new products won't happen. There won't be jobs for individuals, and money will become worthless. Stock will become worthless. You got to have the redistributing of wealth, or there is nothing. Why, you ask, is the economy slow? Because the redistributing of wealth in our society is extremely slow. Why are we in a recession? because the rich believe in the recession. Thus, the reduction in redistributing of the wealth, and therefore the recession. So actually all this stuff they've been telling you about socialism and redistributing the wealth and all that is, excuse the expression, ass backwards. Socialism is a status quo, maintain status quo. The government decides what will be made. The government decides who will make the factories. The government decides who will work. And government decides what products will be sold and how much they'll be sold for. Maintain the status quo. No incentive, no drive, just maintain status quo. When the government has to say that people who are working overtime are not fairly being paid, then the problem is not the people working overtime, but the people who have the wealth trying to hold back the redistributing of wealth. Therefore, capitalism fails. The government should never have to say a person who works over 40 hours gets paid time and a half, if 40 hours is considered the work week. The wealthy should be saying, Henry Ford didn't get super rich by saying, I'm going to pay $3 an hour when everybody else is paying $4. He said, I'm going to pay $5 an hour, more than anybody else, because I want more from my workers. When a worker works overtime, you, the employee, wants more from your worker. Think about that. So, bottom line, people, the wealthy are going to lose in the long run because, all I say is, look at the castles throughout Europe that are hotels, motels, or abandoned. And those were the nobles and kings who hoarded their wealth. And that's the path you wish to choose. Or you could be like Henry Ford and say, I'm going to redistribute my wealth. Yes, I might lose, but the odds are I'm going to win, and I'm going to win big time. And that is redistributing your wealth. Steve Jobs, he redistributed his wealth. Microsoft redistributed their wealth. Bill Gates. And look at where they're standing today. And they're not afraid to redistribute their wealth. But a lot of you up there are petrified of losing a penny. And because of that, capitalism has come to a dead standstill. So, everything economists have told you about capitalism and socialism is totally incorrect. The redistributing of wealth is the driving engine of capitalism. Without it, it slows down, comes to a standstill, or even fails. Socialism is a maintaining of a status quo. No growth. Everything maintains at a single status quo for the society. Which do you choose? If economists would only look back before Karl Marx and look at the writings on the economy, they would see that socialism is a status quo and capitalism is a redistributing of the wealth. Just backwards to what everybody says it is. Free enterprise is nothing more than redistributing of wealth. Bottom line. So, you decide who you want for president a political party person, where political parties care more about power and who's in control, or JD, who cares more about you, the people, each and every one of you, from the richest to the poorest, from the youngest to the oldest. And I am going to be there to protect you and bring your voice to Washington, D.C. And think about what I'm saying here. I'm saying that all these economists and everything got everything, excuse the expression, ass backwards. And it's time for them to wake up and see the truth. Because their theories are correct, but all their theories are based on redistributing of wealth in a capitalist system. Thank you for your time. You have a nice day. Understanding socialism is a status quo, and that always leads to failure because there is no growth, no anything. It's just status quo. Or redistributing of wealth, which is capitalism. And as long as there is redistributing of wealth, capitalism thrives. It's when the lack of redistributing of wealth, capitalism fails. And a free enterprise system allows everybody to choose how they wish to redistribute the wealth. Thank you. Have a nice day. This is JD. You all think about that for a little bit. Do you want a president who understands what it's like to be at the bottom? Or do you want a president from a political party who only knows the top? You all have a nice day. This is JD. You have to make that decision. Oh, by the way, ask yourself how many independent presidents this country had after the Constitution. Oh yeah, one, George Washington. Do we want a president like George Washington who believes in the people? Or do we want a president who's still a political party member and follows the party? You all have a nice day.